But when you're curious, it opens up the conversation. It says, hey, Devon, I'm really interested in what you have to say. And I'm going to sit back and I'm going to be open and I'm going to listen. And that creates safety and trust and respect. And then what we notice happens next is that people then will take chances and they'll tell you, hey, Martine, this is what happened with me. The other day when we were talking, I felt you were a little disrespectful. And I'm just going, I can see that. So rather than looking from my perspective, I'm now looking from your perspective. And I'm being empathetic about what you're saying.
Hey guys, welcome to Keep On Pushing Stories, where we tell you real life stories of persistence, motivation, inspiration, because we want to inspire you to keep on pushing and live your absolute best life. And in this episode, I'm so excited to welcome my friend, Martin Lopez. Martin, welcome, bro.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you having me on. I love that. Keep on pushing. I mean, that is such a that's just a really great anthem for the times we're in right now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. How are you making out in this crazy COVID time?
Well, I'm fortunate. I live by the beach, so I get to walk on the beach every morning, walk on the bay every morning. I'm here in San Diego, so I'm pretty fortunate. And I work just a couple minutes away from where I live, and I got my own private little office, so I'm pretty fortunate. I've been able to, other than the social connections, being able to get with people, I've waited out pretty good.
Yes, fortunate and showing off. That's what I'm hearing in the background there. You're like, I'm by the beach and the Jamaican guy is stuck in New York. Cool. It's okay.
You're welcome to come out anytime, bro.
It's all good, man. It's all good. But hey, I would like to know though, other than hanging out by the beach, what do you do, Martin? How do you serve? How do you bring value to the lives of others?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I wrote a book called The Curiosity Theory. And the idea of the curiosity theory is use curiosity to help you navigate relationships. If you're stuck in an argument, you be curious, and that opens up the door. And you're not arguing, you're not attacking. You sit back and you get a little curious, and you go, "Hey, I wonder what I'm doing here. You wonder, how am I showing up for you?" That kind of thing.
Mm, that's an important subject because so many of us have issues with relationship, even relationship with ourselves.
Oh, the
So
best relationships have issues. The best ones.
yeah, exactly. So would someone find you if they wanted some help with their relationship?
Best way, I'm all over social media at The Curiosity Theory, and my website is thecuriositytheory.com. So if you hit the @ sign, The Curiosity Theory, you'll find me on the internet. I'm the first guy that pops up, and the
All
only
right,
guy.
cool. So thecuriositytheory.com, that's where we find you. But Martin, what I am really curious about is your keep on pushing story. I'm really curious to hear of a time when you pushed yourself to overcome an obstacle or pushed yourself out of your comfort zone to go accomplish something amazing. So I'm curious to hear that. Tell us.
I would say that the book, writing the book, the first story in the book is I had to actually humble myself and then look at my wife and ask her a question about why she was upset with me, and when we got in an argument. It started a Friday afternoon about 4:30. I was leaving here right in the office. I got in my car, I had my headset on. I was driving home, it's just a few minutes away from here. My wife had just gotten home, and we were talking about trying to figure out what we wanted to do for dinner. And the conversation went something like this, honey, where would you like to go for dinner? And she said, I don't care, anywhere you want to go. I said, okay, how about we go down and get some Mexican food right around the corner? Nah, I don't really do want to do that. I said, okay, well, how about we go to Point Loma and get some Chinese food or some Italian food? She's like, I don't really feel like that. So I gave her 2 or 3 suggestions, and every time I suggested, she said no, but then she also said, I don't care, anywhere you want to go. And it really frustrated me. And so by the time I got home, I had my phone and I hit the little off button right before I got to the house and hung up on her, and just figured I'd just walk in and figure it out. Well, when I walked in, she was standing at the door saying, did you hang up on me? Like, no, I didn't hang up on you. So I lied, no, I didn't hang up on you. And 5 minutes later, we had gotten in an argument, and she went to the room and started playing on the crossword puzzles. And I was sitting in the living room, with the remote, watching ESPN or whatever I could watch. Got frustrated and said, you know what, I'm just going to go down to the beach. And so I got in the car, started driving down to the beach. As I was driving down to the beach, I asked myself a question, why are we fighting? Like, why are we fighting? And I started walking on the beach, and then I realized that that there were a few things that had happened to me when I was younger, like these stories when I was younger popped in my head, 3 different stories, and those are the stories in the first stories in the book, and of some arguments and some situations that I got out of completely by accident. But it wasn't it was accident because I had asked a question. I said, I was being curious, and I realized that curiosity had gotten me out of these fights. So I wondered, hey, maybe it can get me out of this situation right now with my wife. So I drove back home, and walking into the room took a lot of courage. It really took, it took me pushing myself because I didn't know what she was going to say. But I asked her, I said, honey, can you tell me what I did to upset you? I'm really curious. And she told me what I did that afternoon to upset her. And then she told me what I had done that week, and then what I had done those months. And she had told me everything that I had done for the last 17 years of my relationship. But the thing is that I actually listened. I was listening. I was curious. I wasn't defending myself. And I realized that curiosity was the key to that relationship. And that if I was curious, that I would be open, I would actually be interested in what she had to say versus defensive and like, pushing back. And that changed my life. That changed my whole relationship and everything in my life. And I wrote a book about it.
Yeah. That's amazing. So what did you learn?
Well, I learned that when you apply curiosity, well, I studied the brain a lot. And so what I realized is that when we fight, when we're in this reptilian mode, it's this back part of our brain, the oldest part of our brain, which is, we call it a reptilian brain. And the options for reptilian brain is fight, flight, or freeze. So you can either fight your way out of a situation, you can run away, or you can freeze and hope it goes away. And basically, this is the like I said, the oldest part of our brain. They also call it the lizard brain. And if we get caught in the lizard brain, what we're going to do is we're going to engage in one of those three different ways. We're either going to try to fight our way. So I'm going to be, Devon, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to argue with you, right? Or I'm just going to run away because I don't feel like arguing with you. I'm just going to sit here and look at you until hopefully it ends. And those options really aren't very good because any kind of fight that you're in is going to escalate from there. Because if I'm ignoring you, if I'm walking away, if I'm arguing with you, or just sitting there, it's not going to go in a good direction. It's what we call the regressive direction. We're going to regress. But when you're curious, it opens up the conversation. It says, hey, Devon, I'm really interested in what you have to say. And I'm going to sit back, and I'm going to be open, and I'm going to listen. And that creates safety and trust and respect. And then what we notice happens next is that people then will take chances, and they'll tell you, hey, Martine, this is what happened with me. The other day when we were talking, I felt you were a little disrespectful, and I'm just going, I can see that. So rather than looking from my perspective, I'm now looking from your perspective, and I'm being empathetic about what you're saying. And it opened up the world to me. And so what I do is I go around teaching that with people. What I do for a living, I was in the mortgage business, and I do that as well. So in the mortgage and in the mortgage business, I have to be empathetic and curious all the time. And so it's really, really helped me in negotiating with people, explaining things to people. And when I go out, teach people sales or customer service skills or communication skills, we're really just teaching how to be empathetic and how to connect with people. And curiosity is really the foundation of connection and empathy and even love.
So curiosity, you're saying, pulls us away from the reptilian brain.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that once you've done that, there has to be a willingness to not be defensive.
Well, yes. And there's something I mentioned earlier is a thing called the regressive cycle. So the regressive cycle is something that happens when we're in the reptilian mode. So so I'm just going to pose this question to you. If someone's not being respectful to you, if someone's being rude to you, they're attacking you, are you going to feel safe?
No, absolutely not.
And then would you then pull back?
That's not my personality.
Okay, so then you would attack, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
not,
so there's
not
different.
necessarily physically, but verbally, yeah, for sure.
Sure, okay.
Mhm.
So then in the situation of trying to accomplish something, if they're arguing against you and you're arguing with them and you guys are going at it, are you going to be moving forward in that relationship or are you going to be moving backward?
Yeah, I mean, I see it, obviously, because now you're creating and heightening the conflict.
Exactly. So as the conflict grows, we naturally pull back. We might be arguing, but we're pulling back from being generous. We're pulling back from giving and like let's say we have a project we're trying to do, right? And we're arguing, is the project going to happen? No, we're going to move in a regressive manner.
Mhm.
So what I have discovered is that most people, if not all people, want to move forward. And when you learn to take responsibility for what you're bringing to a relationship in a conversation, you start to act a little different. Like you start to see that, hey, the results of this conversation, I have something to say about that. So if I'm arguing with you, that means I have something to say about the results. Because arguing, like, have you ever won an argument? Like
You're right.
won
You
one?
don't really, you just kind of go off, convinced that you are right, and the other person is convinced that they are right, and everybody still stays in their corner.
Exactly. So there's no respect, right? There's the lack of respect. There's a lack of safety. The lack of trust happens. So now you're operating your life on top of like for instance, a foundation of yuck. Like it's not a very very great foundation. So now you look at the results you're trying to produce. And you're like, wow, I'm operating on this foundation that's not a very strong foundation, and I have something to say about that foundation. So what you do is we say, be curious. That puts us in something called the progressive cycle. So the regressive cycle goes down, the progressive cycle goes up. And when you learn that you have the power to progress, to actually change things and to be curious, what happens with your brain is you no longer become defensive. So your ego also takes a back seat because your ego is what defends you, right?
Yeah.
So when you're being curious, your ego's like getting out of the way and letting your neocortex or your higher reasoning center take over. And it's actually going, oh, I'm interested. Like, so, okay, I'm being a jackass. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Like, okay, I've been that before, but you cease being so defensive because the defensive part of our body of our brain is the back part and the ego part, right? So when you're curious, the ego actually becomes what we call a curious investigator. It's a neutral observer because the ego like goes back and goes, what's going on here? This is pretty interesting. I'm going to learn from this.
Yeah.
And it watches itself like, wow, I'm not being attacked because I'm being curious. And you actually have a different experience of yourself and other people. And then that causes you to be more curious the next time because you actually are starting to develop skills that when you look at yourself, you go, wow, that's like me. I'm the kind of person that can navigate through an argument. I'm the kind of person that can negotiate in a really positive way. I'm the kind of person that can listen to my spouse or my mother or my brother or my mom or somebody. I can listen to criticism and understand that it has nothing to do with me, that it simply is an experience that somebody's having of me.
Right.
It's not me, it's an experience somebody's having of me. And then as you start to progress, you start to like build a muscle, just like, being an Olympian, you build a muscle, right? And those muscles are self-serving. And when you self-serve your muscles, you can lift bigger things, right?
Yep.
You can deal with bigger problems. So as you become more curious, you can start to deal with bigger problems. You can start to take on, let's say, what would be an insult because you go, oh, wow, this person is giving me an insult because of an experience they're having. It has nothing to do with me. Or if I'm pushing back against it, I can, I do have something to say about this. So if at the end of an interaction, the interaction ends up poorly, and I look at myself and I go, well, I contributed to that because I wasn't being generous.
Mm-hmm.
I contributed to that because I wasn't being curious. At some point you go, well, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. And I find that when you look at curiosity, because you're not feeling egotistical or defensive, you're able to go back and go, you know what? Can we re-talk about that thing?
Mhm.
Because what is the thing that happens when your ego is engaged? It's a feeling of fear, or it's a feeling of protection. It's always like a feeling, right?
There's always a block, right? Don't
Yeah.
come near me. Mhm.
Yeah, so your ego is doing it. But when you remove your ego, or you put your ego aside, that experience of even your own self doesn't exist anymore. So you start to have a different experience of yourself. And then you start to have a different experience of other people. And so when you have these relationships that have been living in conflict for so long, those relationships don't have conflict anymore, because that part of the conflict that you are no longer is part of that. So it becomes, as a punch comes to you, you may get out of the way of the punch, but you look at the punch and you may go, oh, wow. So did I do something to have you swing at me? Your experience of life completely shifts.
Yeah.
And it really is beautiful, because there's relationships that are just like, that I've had that I thought were just gone, that are some of my most beautiful relationships right now. That like, oh my God, like that's, wow. See, I'm actually my wife and I have decided to get a divorce, but we have this beautiful relationship. She just sent me a text a little while ago, just checking in on some stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like, we realize that we are on two different paths, and yeah, now we support each other's path. So even though we're getting a divorce, our relationship has never been more loving, has never been more caring, has never been more empathy. We've never had as much empathy, honesty, trust. We've never had this level of communication, and we're great communicators, because we're not defending anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Curiosity, man. We're going to have to continue this conversation in a longer form, Martin, but thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you for letting me be a part of your what do you call it? Your tribe,
It's all good, man. You're welcome anytime. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this, if you found it valuable, please leave a comment below, hit that subscription button and the notification bell as well, because you'll get a notification every single time we post one of these amazing videos. Just as importantly, share this. Don't keep it. Share it with your friends. By the way, visit my website, www.devonharris.com. And if you subscribe or sign up for my newsletter, you'll get this directly in your inbox. Until we connect next time, yeah, man, keep on pushing.